Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome. This is Wacky Wednesday on the Arrowhead Addict channel. I'm Adam Best, here with the golden voice of Sterling Holmes and our wonderful producer, Richard, doing things behind the scenes. Very lucky to have him. We've got a packed show for you guys today. We'll talk FAU upside, Willie Gay downside, promising signs for veterans Donovan Smith and Richie James, plus much, much more. But before we get into all that fun stuff, Sterling has an exciting offer to share with you guys.
If you guys are looking to place some bets this NFL season, we have the perfect one-stop shop for all of your sports betting needs. Check out arrowheadaddict.com/bets for a variety of sportsbook promos you can use to maximize your winnings. Each time you sign up for one of our promotions, you are directly supporting the podcast. These promotions are constantly changing, so if you aren't sold on promotion now, come back next week. We might have new offers for you. Head over to arrowheadaddict.com/bets by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description, or by typing it in. That's arrowheadaddict.com/bets. Check the episode description for more information.
One final thing, and then we'll jump into our segment. Be sure to check out my 4,000-word, yes, 4,000-word long-form piece on the Chris Jones holdout over on arrowheadaddict.com. Love it or hate it, I think it's going to be a thought-provoking read on team building, how the Chiefs, approach things. Can we constructively criticize the best franchise in the league? Definitely check it out. With that said, Sterling, I know you love a little Casey stock market. Normally we do awards after every Chiefs game, but man, they were bland. They were kind of bad. I don't think they deserve any hardware. So instead of doing that, we're going to do an extended version of one of our favorite segments, the KC stock market.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Fugazi, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust.
Tell me the difference between stupid and illegal, and I'll have my wife's brother arrested.
Had to get a crisp intro for the new season. Let's dive right in. So to the Chiefs, 3rd or 4th and 1 is basically Mars colonization. It's borderline impossible. So I'm going to say their short yardage woes will continue. Pump or dump.
I'm going to be on the pump side. I think it does continue. Listening today to Andy Heck, he was speaking during his presser today, and he basically was like, hey, yeah, that's on the interior offensive line. We got to do that. Asked basically, are you going to do what the Eagles do? And what I gathered from his quotes were basically, probably not. They probably won't be doing that. I think they should. Imagine putting Danny Shelton pushing on Blake Bell back there. It'd be hard not to pick up 1 yard. I also don't think I want to freak out about this as much today as I did Sunday. Here's the reason why. The Chiefs weren't going to give you anything. The Chiefs weren't sitting there trying to bust open this playbook in a preseason game. That might have just been a little bit a case of, hey, we can't do this and try this in practice. You can only do this exact play in game. You're not going to get this physical in training camp. So that was surprising to me. I think it changes a little bit during the regular season, but until they do it, I'm going to say pump.
I'm with you too. I do not get why they won't do the tush push or whatever you want to call it, the rugby scrum that has been so effective for Josh Allen and the Bills and Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. I just don't get it. Blake Bell has that same kind of build where with, like you said, Danny Shelton or some other big physical specimen pushing on him. I just think it's a borderline unstoppable play that the competition committee for some reason has allowed to keep going. Why not take advantage of that rule? The other thing they could do, and you and I have talked about quarterback sneaking Mahomes and why they won't do it. It just seems like that is completely out of the question. So the other option, and you've made this point before, just spread out and throw it. Do what you do best and do what you did to beat the Cleveland Browns in the 2019 playoffs when Chad Henne booted out and hit that quick little strike to Tyreek Hill. I think that would be another option.
Yeah, I would love it. I hate taking the ball out of 15's hands, the best player on the planet. I do not like that. I also think when you have Blake Bell in the game, everyone knows what's going on. While, yes, the interior offensive line is outstanding. We all know this. When the defense knows what's coming, it's a lot easier to stop. I also think it's absolutely silly that the Chiefs don't do any QB sneak with Mahomes anymore. I get it. He had one freak injury. It was one freak injury. Happens all the time. Freak injuries happen in the NFL. Do you think that's going to happen again? I do not. I don't understand this complete. We're not going to even consider Mahomes doing a QB sneak because of what happened that one time with his kneecap. Tom Brady made a career out of QB sneaks. That dude's was 45 years old and still doing QB sneaks. Let Mahomes do a QB sneak.
Yeah, I see it both ways. I mean, he is a $500 million player. By the way, I don't know what's going on out here right now. Someone's doing yard work or something. Hopefully
That's what that is.
Hopefully we'll get through this soon. I can't believe in this huge neighborhood that they do this all week long, that this is happening right now, right outside my window. But that's how life works some ways, sometimes. Yeah, they're just not going to do it. That knee dislocation spooked them probably permanently. But I'll tell you what, if they actually did it, nobody would see it coming. There might be a way to do a fake out with that. I don't know how, but Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce can get in their little end of practice lab and figure something out, hopefully someday.
Number two, given the injuries and rough secondary play in the preseason opener, the Chiefs have a cornerback depth problem, a pump or dump.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they do for a number of reasons. First of all, Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson, they were pretty good last year, especially Jalen Watson. But we know the cornerback position, I like to call it a roller coaster. Lots of variance. Even stars struggle at times. We saw A.J. Terrell, who we thought was a budding superstar, have kind of a piss-poor year last year. So it's no guarantee that they'll continue their fine play. L'Jarius Sneed basically has my knees, and I've had multiple surgeries. Nick Jones broke a couple digits, right? And then Trent McDuffie, the guy that we thought this is going to be our best, our finest coverage corner this year. He had a secondary low 28.7 PFF grade. He got cooked a couple times. He got cooked really bad by Michael Thomas. So I don't want to overreact to the preseason, but
I think you are.
But you know, I've been on kind of this kick that the Chiefs aren't as aggressive as they need to be at times with their spending. And I'm kind of missing Travarius Ward last year. If you look at his contract, it is kind of a bargain. He played like a top 10 corner last year. Would love to have him around. There are a couple guys that I like. I like Khalif Halisi. I liked him in the pre-draft process and kind of put my stamp on him. Great height, great arm length, 90th percentile shuttle. So he's a ball hawk too. We saw that on Sunday. Maybe he cracks the roster.
Dude, I could not dump quicker. I think this Chiefs secondary is incredibly deep. I understand Nick Jones and he has the fractured fingers. He will be okay. You saw the interception from your guy, Halisi. That was just a great read to come back on the ball, to read the quarterback's eyes, come back, not only make the catch, but stay in bounds as well. Echo Boydo is a guy I said going into that game to keep an eye out for, and he was really good. Echo Boydo from K-State. He is a wildcat. While, yes, he is very, very slender. I mean, he is a slight build. He's got the length. And maybe being in a NFL team, NFL system, they can bulk him up just a little bit. You saw him on that one play, the catch he gave up, he went back just a little bit. He was still able to bring him down, although it was a shoestring tackle. I have zero concerns with the depth in the secondary. I understand, you're counting on, in your eyes, a slump or at least a regression from Jalen Watson or Joshua Williams. I don't know if that's the case. I think Joshua Williams, you saw what he did against Michael Thomas in the red zone, right there in the end zone. I almost like Jalen Watson, use him 20-20 and then use Joshua Williams in the red zone. I think you can almost get away with a little bit of that. I am perfectly happy with the depth, including put Shamari Connor into the throw his hat into the ring. I'm a fan of him as well.
Sure. On those second-year players, even Snead had a little bit of a dip that second year. Ultimately, I'm going to worry about it, but I'll trust the process because Veach and Co. have been very good at finding these guys. Dave Merritt and Spags have coached them up. That unit, even though it's not very heralded, they withstood a gauntlet of quarterbacks. Burrow, Lawrence, Jalen Hurts in last year's playoffs. So I'm going to trust it, but I'm going to kind of be a little anxious doing so.
Did you tell that weed eater guy to get off your lawn? What happened there?
Yeah, I did a little grumpy Clint Eastwood. No, he's a working, they're working dudes. I didn't want to be mean or anything. They didn't know. So.
Did you shake your fist?
No, I didn't.
Old man, get off my lawn, you ass. I'm doing a podcast. You and your actual job. Come on.
Yeah. Old man yelling at cloud. No, I didn't. I'm old, but I didn't go that far. The next one could be a little controversial, but Willie Gay could be the Chiefs' worst linebacker this season. Pump or dump?
I guess could be. I'll say pump. I think Nick Bolton, you know who he is. Nick Bolton is an incredible tackler. He's the green dot. He will be out there. Nick Bolton is a very, very good linebacker. Drew Tranquil, I have all the faith in the world. I love that signing. Even in this small sample size we got from him in the preseason, I was a fan of what he did. You saw why I was so enthused. Not only is he pass coverage linebacker, but Spags can draw him up to get after the quarterback. He brought him down. Those two guys, I think, will be above Willie Gay Jr. Then it comes down to Leo Chenal. If they keep a fifth linebacker, whether it's Cole Christensen or whoever is going to be Jack Conkrin, well, then maybe Willie Gay Jr. is above that. But if you're talking about the main four, it comes down to him and Leo. You know what? I'll dump. I don't think Leo sees the field enough. I think Willie Gay Jr. is going to be a third down specialist this year. So I will actually dump this one.
I'm going to pump. I hate to do it, but my issue with Willie Gay is on paper, he should be the best, most well-rounded linebacker in this group because he has the athleticism and traits to do everything. But sometimes he just looks lost out there. I thought he looked lost out there Sunday. There were a lot of times last season where I just don't think, I don't know what it is, instincts, intelligence. And I thought Leo Chenal might have been the best player in the entire defense against the Saints. He really flashed. He looked like a freight train going downhill, and he held up in coverage a little bit better than I thought. Drew Tranquil definitely had his moments. He had the sack, looked pretty good in coverage. You saw the athleticism there. And then, Bolton is Bolton. He is probably not the guy you want out there during dime every time, but one of the better linebackers in the league, the leader of this defense. So I just think Willie, he's going to have to take a step forward, I think, if he wants to stay on this team. Because right now, with Drew Tranquil being pretty cheap and being a vet that seems to be very happy in Kansas City, Bolton being a mainstay, and Leo Chanel having 2 years left on his contract, I think they're probably going to let Willie walk unless he takes a big step forward.
I would say it also depends on what his market looks like, because you saw what Drew Tranquil got. Not as much as I don't think a lot of people around the NFL thought. What I will say is I love this linebacker room. They all bring something different to the table. You have I would say the most complete back would be Drew Tranquil, right? Because he's good in coverage. He's good getting after the quarterback. He's a good tackler.
He's pretty bad against the run, though, if we're being completely honest.
He's a little smaller. On the smaller side, I wouldn't say he was bad, but he's on the little lighter side. Nick Bolton excels against the run, one of the best linebackers in football against the run. Leo Chanel actually is one of the best against the run from week 15 on, including the playoffs. Leo was outstanding. But again, I think you might see some limitations in pass coverage from Leo just based on the size. And then you have Willie Gay Jr. Well, he excels in the athleticism and coverage. He was actually graded one spot below Drew Tranquil in pass coverage last year. So for all the mishaps he had, he's still damn talented. So if he ever puts it together, watch out. He could be top 5, top 10 easy in pass coverage linebacker. But what I will say is together, they're a great group. By themselves, maybe nothing special, but together they make a great, great group.
Yeah, Leo's a thumper. And then Willie, he's a heat-seeking missile. I think if he can consistently get pointed in the right direction, watch out. That just doesn't always transpire.
Next one, number 4. Richie James and Justyn Ross will surpass Justin Watson on the depth chart. Pump or dump?
Yeah, I had a kind of a funny tweet about how competitive this wide receiver room is getting. It's like everybody's coming for Justin Watson's roster spot. I know he's kind of teacher's pet because of his blocking, his knowledge of the playbook, special teams. He's a good gunner, all those things. But he's an inefficient receiver. And on Sunday, I thought Richie James was probably the best player on offense for the Chiefs. One of a couple guys that really, really popped. He had a jaw-dropping 7.33 yards per out run, which, I mean, top in the league was like 4-point-something by Tyreek Hill last year. So that's a limited sample size, but it just shows you that guy can get on the field for 6 routes and really pop. He's got some juice. I thought Justyn Ross resembled sort of a prototypical throwback possession receiver, kind of like a Mike Williams type, if you will. And yeah, I've just not been that impressed with Watson, especially down the stretch last year. I think he kind of disappeared, had some drops, was just really doing cardio out there, basically running empty routes.
Yeah. End of the day, it doesn't matter what you are. I think it matters what Andy Reid and Brett Veach think, and they clearly think that Justin Watson's going to be on this team. He's running with the ones. He's consistently been running with the ones. You saw in the preseason game, he came out very, very early, didn't play many snaps. You know why?
Yeah, why?
Nothing to prove. They know what he is. They know what he brings to the table. Again, do I think he's as good offensively as Justyn Ross or Richie James? No, I don't. But I do think that your wide receiver 5, 6, 7 are more valuable on special teams than probably on the field. I think that Richie James overtakes Justyn Watson as far as offensive output, but I don't think Justyn Ross does this year. Just based on snap count, snap share, or however you want to break it down, yards. I think Richie James is going to see the field a lot more. I think you might see him a lot, especially early on in 3 receiver sets. I think you're going to see Richie James a ton on 3rd down. I think that's going to be his calling card. But you mentioned that 43-yard catch he brought in from Blaine Gabbert. The reason why he didn't have a ton of that last year with the Giants, because that's not the Giants offense. That's Daniel Jones on the ball. They are a check down offense. He has great separation in short yardage scenarios, but he also can go deep. He has phenomenal hands. You saw him bring in that touchdown pass. That was a bad thrown ball by Blaine Gabbert. He still brought that thing in and scored. I think Richie James is climbing. I think Justyn Ross, as much as I love him, I think he is climbing. I don't see him being above Justin Watson unless they do the bold thing and cut Justyn Watson, which, by the way, I feel bad for Watson himself. He seems to be the most hated man in Kansas City for no apparent reason.
Yeah, he's a hard worker. I'm sure he's a good dude, but he's just not as talented as the rest of these guys. And my hope with Richie James in particular is that returning punts is more important than being a gunner. I don't know inside Dave Tobe's mind. Sometimes it's puzzling the way he thinks. He is normally a very good special teams coach, but sometimes he makes weird decisions. I don't know. Ross, I don't think is as vital on special teams. So I'm trying to think. I guess I'm dumping because they just clearly have a fascination with this player and the complexity of the Chiefs route tree. You know, all the option routes they do. They want guys who are in the right place at the right time. I agree with you on Richie James producing more because right now I kind of think he's a quasi fill-in for Kadarius Toney and kind of doing the McCole Hardman stuff, right? He's the guy that's going to do most of that. Probably Sky Moore will do some. And Justyn Watson is kind of a poor man's MVS. So you don't need two guys out there stretching the field most of the time.
I've been saying that nonstop. I said when MVS's snap count went down last year, is correlated with Justyn Watson's going up and vice versa. I'm with you, but again, the Chiefs obviously have this value. It doesn't matter what we think. It matters what they do and what they tell us, and what they're telling us, at least with their actions so far, is Justyn Watson is probably going to make at least a decent impact on this team. I love this comment from Maximilian Mueller. It says, James for sure. Ross will be an impact next year, just flash here and there this year. I think I'm in the same boat. I also wonder if when MVS's contract's up, if they don't bring him back, that might open the door more for Justyn Ross next year. This might be getting his feet wet this year, if you will. We know Chiefs and rookie wide receivers, they don't get a ton of playing time. He's basically a rookie. I get it. He was here last year, right? I understand that, but he didn't play any games. He's basically a rookie. So I think they'll give him a smattering of touches this year. And it's next year where he really shows off. Sky Moore, I think the same way. Sky Moore didn't see a ton last year. This year we see him take that next step. I'm kind of thinking that Justyn Ross can take more of a step next year, not this one.
I agree with that. So Felix Anudike-Uzomah has the most upside long-term out of all the edges on the roster. Pump or dump?
I'll pump. Most upside, yes. Karlaftis, I think, will be more consistent. Karlaftis, I can't picture George Karlaftis not having a season without going forward at least 7 or 8 sacks. Like, I think that's the absolute floor for Karlaftis going forward. I think he's going to be a consistent guy, but I also can't see Karlaftis ending up a year with 14 plus. I don't really think that's in his game. FAU is a little bit more interesting. I think his upside is higher. He has a bevy of pass moves. You saw the bend that he brings that Karlaftis just doesn't quite have. Again, I'm not saying that who would I rather have? I don't know. I like Karlaftis' floor. I like what he brings. I like the consistency he has. I know what he is already based on 1 year. I knew what he was going to be with him coming out of college, but I do find it a little funny because he's still a really young cat. And it's not like he played football his whole life. He's coming from Greece, but it's just based on that body type. That body type to me doesn't scream, yeah, he's going to get 14, 15 sacks in a season. FAU is a little bit different. I don't know your opinion here. I think FAU has the upside, but it comes with a lot more risk.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the FAU camp, so I am pumping here. I think he showed multiple tools already in his limited action. And like you said, the bend, the ability to kind of dip, that ankle mobility, kind of got diagonal and can get under there. We haven't really seen that since, I don't know, Derek Thomas, it seems like. And I'm not saying he's Derek Thomas, but usually a Spags edge is much more power oriented than kind of flexibility, speed, bend. He likes the motor guys. Definitely Karlaftis is a motor guy. And I thought FAU flashed against the run too. It's not like he was just only bringing it in pass rushing situations. I'm a big Charles Omenihu guy, but I've also got to be honest. He didn't play very good. He got pancaked by offensive tackle Trevor Penning out there and kind of had a little bit of a rocky start to his Chiefs tenure. Didn't have a lot of plays. I think he will probably be their second best defensive lineman this year. I'm definitely going to lose our bet now that he's got a 6-game suspension. I think you're waiting for that.
I have it pulled up. Yes, I even have the caveat. We even said, he's getting suspended, and you said, yes, I understand this. That's a binding document. We have a fifth. Who has more sacks this year, Karlaftis or Menahu? I am feeling pretty darn good over here.
I was blindsided by how long the suspension was. I'm not going to argue with it because I'm glad that the NFL at least appears to be taking domestic violence and those kind of disputes seriously. They kind of did it for a long time. I think the problem that fans have with them is consistency. Like, you have to be consistent from player to player. But yeah, that's definitely going to impact his production. FAU, I was very impressed by his initial debut, right? And it wasn't just me. PFF graded him as the best rookie pass rusher last week in preseason action. Nate Tice of The Athletic was also gushing about this kid. So I think we have to be very pleased with the way he's started in Kansas City.
Yeah, and I will also point out what makes me excited to an extent. He played in a very untraditional system at K-State. K-State is a very good football school, but their defense is a little different. It doesn't always translate well to the NFL. And the fact he put up numbers in what was a 3-3-5 they run out there defensively, he's getting doubled a lot.
Right.
They know what they're like. Let's focus in on Felix. Let's focus in on FAU. And he was still putting up numbers. That to me is impressive. That to me shows you that he could do it in any system, in any scheme. He will find a way to get it done. I like that in a guy.
Speaking of 3-3-5, I've heard in camp they're doing some of that. They're bringing Chanel up as kind of like a stand-up Melvin Ingram type pass rusher, and I love that.
Yeah.
I always thought he had a little bit of edge in him.
Yeah. Harms and I last year, Daniel Harms, we have him on the show here sometimes. We always laughed because going into last year when Leo Chenal was drafted, we said, it's going to be fun seeing him get after the quarterback. They're going to do this. They never did. We were like, okay, we're a bunch of buffoons. We went galaxy brain, and now we're starting to see it a little bit this year. So maybe we're a year early. But I think getting Leo after the quarterback could be a very intriguing proposition for Kansas City.
Totally agree. Let's move on. To quote the movie Full Metal Jacket, Donovan Smith is born again hard. Tales of his demise were greatly exaggerated. Are you pumping or dumping on just everyone kind of freaking out and calling this guy a terrible left tackle because of one injury-riddled season?
Can I give a slight pump? Like, can we calm down a little bit? He played one offensive possession. Like, there wasn't enough time for him to get all those flags he accrued last year. Of course, I like Donovan Smith, and I said, yeah, you should expect some regression to the mean, which for him is actually getting better because last year he was injured. The Buccaneers offensive line was a dumpster fire. There were a plethora of injuries. When your left guard is rotating in and out, you have no chance of having any sort of consistency. Well, now he's got Joe Thuney. Everyone plays better alongside Joe Thuney, so he will look better. But I don't think he's going to be what he once was a few years ago. The struggles with Donovan Smith are still going to be there. You know why he also looked good? The Chiefs did 2 swing passes and a couple of runs. They weren't throwing the ball deep. That's what gets Donovan Smith in trouble. That's what I'm looking forward to as the preseason progresses well into the regular season. How does he hold up? When Mahomes is back there making something happen, does he hold onto the jersey? That's what I'm worried for. Again, I think he's going to be a pretty good left tackle this year, but that's going to be the hardest thing for me to eventually find out. When Mahomes scrambles, does he hold? Do the penalties start to fly?
You want to see when those plays get extended, if he can hang in there. Because
he'll be fine with this. This was not the issue. I had no question he'd be fine in short passes and run blocking, all this stuff. I mean, I get he didn't grade out great in run blocking last year. I get all that stuff. But my point is, I wasn't worried about these short passes. What makes me worried about him are the long drops, the extended plays when Mahomes scrambles and improvises. That's what makes me nervous with him. Although I will say he does have better feet than OBJ, as I see Doug in Kansas saying down there. I would agree. He does have quicker feet than OBJ.
He's more of a dancing bear, and he doesn't have those cinder block feet, as we like to say. O-line guru Brandon Thorne of Trench Warfare, love his takes. He kind of raved about him. I thought he displayed a nasty streak, kind of pancake somebody. He really moves well in space. And I think expecting him to be the 2021 version where he kind of looked like maybe a top 10 tackle that year, part of that was Tom Brady just unloading the ball crazy quick and him being on a great offensive line. But he's next to Joe Thuney, and we know everyone looks better next to Joe Thuney. My overall take here, I think Chiefs fans need to have this perspective. When Donovan Smith, a healthy Donovan Smith, presumably, is your 5th best offensive lineman, you are in great shape. 25 teams would crawl over glass to have a weak link on their offensive line that who is that good. So I think we're in phenomenal shape heading into the season. Wanye Morris, going to be a swing tackle. I think he looked pretty good. I'm feeling great about the offensive line, perhaps as good as I felt.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved Wanye Morris. We talked about it post-game. Him, and I even said Darian Kennard. Kennard at guard looked really, really solid in my opinion. That entire right side looked really good, especially for backups. Again, I understand they're going up against second and third stringers, so it's not going up against Nick Bosa. I understand this, but still, it was impressive to see in my eyes. I like this comment from Cole. If Donovan Smith can be even 80% of what Orlando Brown Jr. was, the signing was worth it. Now, Cole, I know a lot of people are going to get on you because they're going to say, oh, he's already going to be better and all this stuff, and Orlando Brown Jr. is a bum. Orlando Brown Jr. was not a bum. He was fine. And if you look at the contract discrepancy between the two, yes, if he's 80%, if he's 90% of what Orlando Brown Jr. was last year, this offensive line is going to be outstanding, okay? There's not a weak link. As much as people ripped on Orlando Brown Jr. last year, he was not this absolute train wreck. He was not atrocious. He was fine. He was fine.
He wasn't even the weak link. That was Andrew Wiley definitely was the worst lineman on that unit. And, you know, he played about as well as you can expect from Andrew Wiley. But again, I'm feeling good. And who knew only 75% of the draft industrial complex said that Darian Kennard was a guard and the Chiefs wanted to move him to tackle. I get it. He's got an enticing frame, but it seems like he's destined to play inside as a guard.
Yeah. And I will also say, yes, Ronald, I agree. Donovan Smith, his scheme, what he does best fits the Chiefs better than Orlando Brown Jr. Just based on Orlando Brown Jr. in a run-first system is a very, very good left tackle. In a pass-first system, a lot of deep drops, maybe not so much. Let's get into the next one. Shane Buechele flashed, but Blaine Gabbert's time around Tom Brady and Bruce Arians better prepares him for Chad Henne-esque emergency moments. Pump or dump?
I'm pumping. I like Buechele better long-term for this team because I think he's a homeless man's Mahomes. I've said before that I kind of wanted us to sign Gardner Minshew because he plays with his hair on fire a little bit like Mahomes does. And I think you can have great playbook continuity when your backup and your starter fit the same mold. And I don't really see that with Blaine Gabbert, but he was a better prospect coming into the league. I think experience really, really matters when it's Super Bowl or bust. A lot of pressure when you're a Kansas City Chief. And Chad Henne handled that masterfully. Didn't panic, didn't get outside of himself, just came in, managed the game. Both times he was called upon to do that in the playoffs. I trust Blaine Gabbert to do that more. I do think, I don't want to over exaggerate here and say that Tom Brady really rubbed off on him, but being around Tom Brady and a really good quarterback guru like Bruce Arians, I think prepared him for this time in Kansas City.
What I want and what I think is going to happen is probably two different things. What I want is Shane Buechele. At some point, he's no longer a kid. He's no longer a prospect. Do what the Patriots did, try and grow these backup quarterbacks, and then you can sell them off for a king's ransom. I mean, that's what I would do personally. But what Andy Reid does, and I understand it to an extent, is he is such a good offensive mind. He is so good at scheming up players. He goes, give me the guy who won't make turnovers. Give me the guy who won't make as many mistakes. Blaine Gabbert won't make as many mistakes. While he did not look good, he threw some bad passes. They were not in harm's way. That was the difference. Shane Buechele, as many great plays as he made, the two that really stand out are the one that he threw to Rashee Rice, where he threw it into about triple coverage. I'm glad Rashee Rice made the catch and came down, but that was dangerous. And then he followed that up with a worse pass that ended up getting picked off. Andy Reid will not stand for that in a backup quarterback. What has he shown? He wants the veteran guy who takes care of the ball, who's basically a clock manager. That's what he wants. So even though I might want Shane Buechele, which is coming from a Mizzou guy, that's a Blaine Gabbert football over my shoulder. Okay, I love Blaine Gabbert. I want to see Shane Buechele, but we're not going to see it.
Yeah, I think he definitely has more upside. But I think what Andy Reid wants in a backup quarterback is what Kyle Shanahan wants in a starter. He wants a robot. He wants someone who's going to execute the exact thing he wants them to do at the exact moment. It's one of the best offensive minds in the sport. We've got Travis Kelce and other weapons, a great offensive line. No reason to get outside of yourself when you're waiting for Patrick Mahomes. Part of this depends on, I don't even want to say what happens, but let's just say one of these guys needs to step in for some time. I don't want to say why, because I'm superstitious about 15, but 10 games. Which one of them do you pick if you're Andy Reid?
Buechele. One game, Gabbert. Anything more than 3 or 4, I want Shane Buechele.
We're in total alignment there. At some point, you have to shit or get off the pot with Shane Buechele. You have to see what you have, and you can't keep him forever. I think eventually you kind of owe it to the kid to get a shot, right?
I don't know if you owe anything. Your goal is to win games. You don't owe anything in the NFL. You're not owed playing time, but I get what you're trying to say. What I will say is I'm comfortable either way with who it is, Buechele or Blaine Gabbert. They're just both very different styles of player. Blaine Gabbert, I will say, still has some arm talent left. That was a beautiful 40. The only throw that was good was a 43-yarder to Richie James. That was a beautifully thrown ball. The other 7 were a little questionable,
right?
But that one was a beautifully thrown ball. So that at least tells me there's still arm strength there. There's still arm talent there. He also might just be a little rusty. He wasn't playing a ton last year. That's not his game. So, he needs as much preseason action, in my opinion, as Buechele does.
Dude has a rocket launcher, though. Let's move on to the final one, and that's neither Clyde Edwards-Helaire nor Deneric Prince look dynamic or explosive. So the Chiefs need to add another running back. Pump or dump?
Dump. Come on. If you guys are freaking out over one preseason game where Deneric Prince isn't even behind the starting offensive line, y'all need to calm down. It's okay. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. So if you want to do it, that's fine. But I am not going to get stressed out about that. It means nothing to me. We know who Clyde is. Clyde's a semi-versatile back who can catch the ball, and he'll run for about 4 yards a clip. He's not super explosive. We know this. Deneric Prince is more explosive, but he needs time. Now, I'd like to see him behind the first-string offensive line. That would make me feel a little better. But anyone freaking out saying, they need another running back, or these guys are bums, or they're busts, calm down. And first off, Deneric Prince was an undrafted guy. What did you think was going to go off for 1,200 yards this year? And by the way, Isaiah Pacheco is still on this team. When it comes playoff time, it's going to be Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. I don't give a hoot what happens week 1 in the preseason. I'm fine with this. The Chiefs do not need to add another running back. They're okay. Dump.
I'm dumping for now, but not as enthusiastically as you are. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not a good player. You look at rushing yards over expected, all that kind of advanced stuff. And you can kind of be either small or slow as a running back in the NFL. You cannot be both. He is both. I wasn't impressed with Deneric Prince. Didn't look very good. I think maybe Isaiah Pacheco spoiled us. And we started thinking,
yes.
And we started thinking,
for every Pacheco, there's a Cyrus Gray. I don't understand.
A Darwin Thompson. Right. So I think we expected it. It's kind of like with Mahomes, his contract pay cut. I think now fans kind of expect everyone to do that. And when these kind of anomalies happen, these unusual things, you just can't expect them to keep happening. You can't, I mean, finding a player like Isaiah Pacheco is very rare. My issue here is McKinnon is one of the oldest running backs in the league, along with Latavius Murray and Cordero Patterson. You got to worry about that. He's a guy that's not very big. He's had some injuries in the past. He's really shown no signs of slowing down, but I'm a little worried about that. Pacheco has health concerns of his own. I wouldn't panic, but a lot of running backs get cut. And I wouldn't mind adding a vet who can pass protect, who can catch the ball as an insurance policy so we don't get stuck with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the playoffs.
I was laughing. I'm being slightly facetious when I say this, but I thought Zeke would have actually made a great fit on this Chiefs team. One, he's incredible in short yardage situations. He was one of the most ineffective, inefficient running backs last year, except for short yardage situations. He was still very good at 12 touchdowns. He's also one of the best pass protection backs in the NFL because he's just so big.
Definitely.
Honestly, Zeke would have made a lot of sense here in Kansas City. I would not have paid even anything close to that amount of money that he ended up getting. But still, it made me laugh a little bit thinking, you know what? Maybe the most inefficient running back actually would have made the most sense on this Chiefs team. Again, I'm completely fine. The Chiefs are good with who they have. They have those four dudes. Hell, Jerrion Ely was even kind of fun in a limited action just based on his speed. Chiefs are okay, man.
Yeah, I'm not recommending them to go out and get Leonard Fournette, but I would watch The Wire if these guys continue not to impress. Adding another body wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. I saw a comment I wanted to hit. Let's see if I can get back to it. Fantasy football Chiefs question from Alex Bro. I think that's how you pronounce your last name. Bruff. Which Chiefs wide receiver do you think would be best for full PPR fantasy leagues and for a dynasty league? I think you have to go with Sky Moore if it is a full PPR dynasty, because I think he's still young enough and he's going to be a target magnet. He's going to be a guy that soaks up targets. If it was standard or half PPR, you might look at Rashee Rice because of age and upside, but I think it's Sky Moore. Sky Moore is the safest bet. I've been drafting him some. I've really been drafting a lot of MVS because I just think Marquez Valdez-Scantling is the one guy in this offense who we know what he's going to do. We know he's going to do something like 800 yards, 45 to 50 catches, maybe have some spike weeks. So there you have it.
Yeah, I think it's Sky Moore without a question. I've already said I think he's going to lead the Chiefs wide receivers in receptions this year. I don't think he goes for a ton of yards. So if you're not playing PPR, if it's a non-PPR league, I don't know there's even a good Chiefs wide receiver to have.
We have a bet here.
The ball around. I know Mahomes spreads the ball around though so much that. And by the way, yeah, our bet is he has to go over, what is it, 1,000 yards?
Right.
That's a lot different. I like Sky Moore a lot. I don't think he's going over a K with how Mahomes spreads the ball around.
I think people say that, but Juju Smith-Schuster, he's not that good of an athlete anymore. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's a tough, rugged player, but he almost got 1,000 last year, and he missed 2 games. And people say, Mahomes loves to spread it around. Well, he didn't when he had Tyreek. You know, and I'm not saying Sky Moore is Tyreek, but he might be the best receiver, the most dependable receiver Mahomes has had since Tyreek. If he lives up to his draft capital, if he lives up to it, he was a tremendous prospect. Some people had him as
two. Like, come on, we're not doing this. If he lives up to his draft capital, no, come on.
Okay,
That. If Kadarius Toney stays healthy, he's going for 1,200. This happened.
Okay. That's a
lot of what ifs, my guy. I'm telling you right now, Sky Moore is going to probably have the most receptions from Kansas City, from any wide receiver. Obviously, we're not saying Travis Kelce is a tight end. But if any wide receiver, yeah, Sky Moore's the best chance. But I don't think you're going to look back this year and seeing him over 1,000 yards. They spread the ball around too much. And by the way, Richie James, I think, is going to get a lot more reps than maybe you or I or a lot of people listening are going to think. Not more than me, because I'm all on Richie James. But I think Richie James is going to take a lot of snaps away from either MVS, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Kadarius Toney, you name it. I think that's a little underrated talking point here.
I got to get a rebuttal in there because McCole Hardman is a gadget player. He was a project. He just didn't have it in him to be a receiver. He's not someone who has a feel for the position. And I think Sky Moore, he's got a gorgeous package of releases. He can beat man, he can beat zone, he can beat press. He's very good in the short to intermediate ranges. I think sometimes the moment was too big from him, coming from a non-Power 5 school as an early declare. And I think with a year under his belt to adjust to the speed of the game and to learn the playbook and get on the same page as everybody else, he has the most upside now that Kadarius Toney has proven himself to be completely unreliable.
I didn't know people were that much higher on Sky Moore than me. I thought I was one of the Sky Moore supporters over here, but apparently I am not.
Hey, it's not just Chiefs Kingdom either. I think during this offseason, he has gone in best ball drafts from like 180 up to like 93. He has a lot of steam around the league and in fantasy circles right now. I mean, I think the general consensus is this is the guy you want to bet on in this wide receiver room. Before we get out of here, I have a question for you. One of my favorite bands of all time is Smashing Pumpkins. I'm going to a concert tomorrow. I've never seen them before. Are you into them? Do you have a favorite song?
As a drummer, I like Cherub Rock. That's fun to play. What's it? Bullet with
Butterfly Wings.
Butterfly Wings, otherwise known as Rat in a Cage.
Right.
That song's great. Was it 1979 Solid Tonight?
Seminal song of the 90s, 1979, I think, rock song.
They're solid. Is it Billy Corgan? Is that his name? The dude that rocks with a kilt.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick, by the way.
I've heard some not great things about him.
Yeah, so I've kind of had to like disassociate myself with his personality to still enjoy the band. But for me, it's 1979. And then there's this song called Drown from the soundtrack to the movie Singles, which is like a less famous version of Reality Bites back in the day. It is kind of a great under the radar B-side type song. Everyone check it out. I'm psyched, man. I've never seen him before. A lot of these 90s bands we can't even see anymore. The big bands of the 90s. I saw Pearl Jam, but you can't see Nirvana. You can't see Soundgarden anymore. So you can't see Alice in Chains, right? So I'm going to really enjoy this. Big music fan, maybe not as big as you. You're a drummer and everything. I have that much musical talent, which is
a good point though. I mean, even I know Alice in Chains is still touring with Lane Staley. But even like
that's right.
Stone Temple Pilots though, I mean, they're still touring, but it's not the same. Scott Weiland passed away. A lot of those bands from the 90s. Chili Peppers still kicking it. I mean, they were an 80s band, started in 83. They're still kicking it. Yeah,
and those guys did quite a bit of drugs. So I think we're
quite a bit is a misnomer. That seems
okay. They did Keith Richards' amount of drugs. How's that?
As high as you are on Sky Moore yards wides this year. That we'll go with that.
Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Big props to the chat. Very active. We appreciate you as always. Before you roll out, do us a favor by liking this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're an audio listener on Apple Podcasts, what you can really do to help us reach more fans is give us a 5-star review. That would be very clutch. We will be back here next week at 4:30 p.m. Actually, I won't be. I'm on vacation, but Sterling will be with someone else or doing a solo show. Yeah, I told you about this.
What the hell? You think I remember?
Yeah. Got to write this
I'm
stuff
going to
down.
forget until Tuesday. It's going to hit Tuesday. I'm like, yo, Best, you ready for tomorrow?
Yeah, but I will be back. I will be doing some coverage for the preseason games, so you will still see me. But until next Wacky Wednesday, go Chiefs.